After 10 years of undercover, I finally ended the entire drug cartel. On the day of my reinstatement, my family came to pick me up. But I don't have the daughter I want to see the most. My husband pointed to a girl with heavy makeup and said that she was our daughter. She lives in the penthouse I bought for my daughter, swiping the secondary card I left for her with the password for her birthday. The bill shows that she spent 300,000 yuan last week. But I can't even match the mole in the corner of her eye. I smiled and pulled out my gun and put it on her forehead. 3 seconds, tell my daughter's whereabouts. My marksmanship is not as bad as my memory. Decade. I ended the largest drug cartel entrenched in the Golden Triangle. On the day of the restoration of identity, the sun was dazzling. My husband Gavin was all there. Only my daughter, Nia. Gavin pointed to a strange girl. She wore heavy makeup and the smell of perfume choked. Lena, this is Nia, she's grown up. I looked at her. Looking at the corners of her smooth eyes. My daughter has a small tear mole in the corner of her left eye. I remember. I laughed. The muzzle of the gun was on her forehead. The cold metal clings to the warm skin. 3 seconds, tell me my daughter's whereabouts. My marksmanship is not as bad as my memory. The girl screamed. Gavin rushed over, his face pale. Lena, you're crazy. She's Nia. I ignored him. My eyes fell on the girl's neck. It was a white gold necklace. The pendant was designed by my own hands. Inside, the first baby tooth that Nia replaced is sealed. My fingers started reading the seconds. 3. The girl's body shook like a sieve. I said. I say. Her voice was crying. Gavin tried to come up and grab my gun, but I elbowed him to my chest with my backhand. He snorted and took 2 steps back. After 10 years of undercover, my skills are no longer what he remembers. 2. There is no hint of temperature in my voice. The girl completely collapsed. She is at the Daystar Correctional Center on the outskirts of the city. Daystar Correctional Center. I've heard the name. A shelter for problem children known for its harshness and high mortality rate. My heart is like being held by a cold hand. Why? Why is my daughter, my Nia, there? I withdrew the gun and inserted it back behind my waist. The girl collapsed to the ground. Gavin's face was full of horror and anger. Lena, listen to my explanation. I kicked him away. I don't care about you. I rushed out of the penthouse. As the elevator went down, I dialed Commander Leo. Leo, help me check the Daystar Correctional Center. Address, person in charge, all monitoring permissions. I want it now. On the other end of the phone, Leo did not hesitate at all. Received, the permission will be sent to your mobile phone within 5 minutes. Lena. I hung up the phone. I didn't have time to listen to his concerns. In the underground garage, a black off-road vehicle is parked quietly. It was given to me in the game. I pulled the door open and sat inside. The engine roared, like a depressed beast roar. The car rushed out of the basement and merged into the traffic. My phone vibrated. It is an encrypted file sent by Leo. Address, person in charge, internal structure diagram, everything is available, and there is even an entrance for real-time monitoring. I click on the monitor. The screen is divided into a dozen small windows. Corridors, activity rooms, confinement rooms. Bleak, oppressive. I look for it frame by frame. My hands were shaking. I'm afraid of seeing pictures I don't want to see. My Nia. Mom is back. You wait a little longer. The car was speeding on the highway. The sound of the wind poured into the car window, like the wailing of countless people. I finally found myself in a monitoring blind spot. No, not a dead end. Someone covered the camera with a cloth. But I recognized the house number of that room. 307. It is an intensive care unit. My heart stopped beating instantly. I stepped on the accelerator to the end. The off-road vehicle was like a black bullet, shooting towards the outskirts of the city. The Daystar Correctional Center appears in the field of vision. The high white wall pulls the power grid on top. It's more like a prison. The security guard at the door tried to stop him. I didn't slow down. Directly hit open the heavy iron door. Amid the harsh sound of metal twisting, I rushed in. The car stopped with a flower bed on top. I kicked the door open. Several men in uniform gathered around, holding electric batons in their hands. "Who are you? Dare to break into the Rising Star?" I didn't speak. Pulled out the gun directly from behind the waist. The black muzzle made them instantly quiet. I walked towards the main white building. Walked to room 307. My steps are steady. But every step is like stepping on the tip of a knife. The door of 307 is locked. I lifted my foot and kicked it away. The door panel hit the wall with a loud noise. The room was dark. The window was nailed to death by wooden boards. The air was filled with a musty smell and the smell of potions. There was also a thin figure, curled up on the iron bed in the corner. "It's Nia." I recognized her at a glance. Even though she was so thin that she was out of shape. His hair was dry and yellow, like a weed. She wore an ill-fitting hospital gown and had visible strangulation marks on her wrists and ankles. She heard the voice and raised her head in horror. Those eyes that were once as bright as stars are now left with emptiness and fear. She looked at me, her lips moved, but she didn't make a sound. My tears burst at that moment. 10 years of licking blood, I haven't shed a single tear. But now, I cry like a child. I walked over and slowly squatted down. "Nia, it's Mom." My voice is hoarse and trembling that I am unfamiliar with. "Mom is back." Her empty eyes fluctuated slightly. Then, as if she had exhausted all her strength, she stretched out her hand to me. Her arms were covered with pinholes. I held her hand. Cold, thin, with only a handful of bones left. I took her into my arms. She was as light as a feather. I felt her weak breathing and the abnormal rise and fall of her chest. I untied her hospital gown. On her chest, there was a long, newly healed scar. Like a hideous centipede. My blood was cold for a moment. I hugged her and rushed out of the room. The people at the door saw me coming out and wanted to surround me. I held my daughter in my arms and drew my muzzle in front of him. "Whoever dares to stop me, I will kill whom." I carried Nia into the back seat of the car. With the fastest speed, drive to the best private hospital in the city. This hospital has the resources I bought with my life. I drove directly to the emergency room. The dean personally brought people to wait there. Seeing Nia in my arms, his face changed. "Quick! Prepare the operating room. All experts are in place immediately." Nia was pushed into the emergency room. The red light came on. I was standing in the hallway, covered in blood. There are others, and there are my own. When he hit the door, his arm was scratched. But I don't feel pain. All my senses are focused on the closed door. A few hours later, the door opened. The dean walked out, took off his mask, and looked solemn. "Lena, it's not good. The child has been malnourished for a long time, has multiple soft tissue contusions, and severe psychological trauma. The most important thing is her heart. Half of the pericardium was removed. My brain is blank. Pericardium. In order to save her congenital deficiency heart, I entrusted countless relationships to get an experimental genetic agent from abroad, which can stimulate the regeneration of the heart muscle and pericardium. It is something that prolongs her life. Why was it removed? Where's the medicine? What about the genetic agent I left behind?" I grabbed the dean's arm. The dean sighed. "The potion was taken away by your husband Gavin a month ago. He said it was for Nia. We checked the information, and that girl is indeed called Nia, the same name as your daughter. Sophia. That imposter. I understand. Everything is understood. They not only took my daughter's identity, but also took her life-saving medicine. A fishy sweetness surged into his throat. My eyes went dark. I woke up again, in the ward. Leo sat on the edge of the bed with a worried face. Are you awake? How does it feel? I struggled to sit up. Where's Nia? Still in the intensive care unit, but the situation has stabilized. I breathed a sigh of relief, and then I was overwhelmed by great anger. I unplugged the 4-tube from my hand. I'm going back. Lena, calm down. Leo held me down. How can I calm down? My daughter almost died. They stole the life-saving medicine. How can I calm down? My voice was hoarse, like the roar of a trapped beast. Leo was silent. He knows my past. Know what Nia means to me. After a long time, he let go of his hand. I'll send someone to follow you. No. I stood up. This is my family business. I changed into my clothes and walked out of the ward. My home. The place I guarded with 10 years of youth and blood, but finally betrayed me. I went back to that penthouse. The door is unlocked. I pushed the door open. There was no one in the living room. I walked to Nia's room. The room that I once decorated as a pink fairy tale castle. Now, there are a mess of star posters on the walls. The floor was littered with boxes of luxury goods. And the girl named Sophia. Lying on Nia's bed, wearing a mask, listening to music leisurely. Gavin sat on the edge of the bed, peeling an apple. When he saw me, he was stunned. Sophia was also frightened and sat up. You. Why are you back? I ignored them. My eyes fell on the bedside table. There is a thermostatic medical box there. Inside, there is the last genetic agent I prepared for Nia. The needle tube is empty. The medicine was used up. It was used on this imposter. I laughed. I laughed so hard that tears flowed out. My phone rang. It was the hospital calling. Lena, Miss Nia's heart has a rejection reaction and is in urgent need of genetic agents to stabilize. I hung up the phone. His gaze, inch by inch, moved to Gavin and Sophia. That gaze was like a poison knife. You all deserve to die. Gavin's face instantly lost its color. He stood up and stood in front of Sophia. Lena, listen to me, Nia, she has a very serious antisocial personality. We sent her to the correctional center for her own good. She hurt Sophia, so we had to give Sophia the medicine. Falsehood. A lie that comes when you open your mouth. My Nia, who has been speaking softly since she was a child. Even trampling an ant to death will cry for a long time. Antisocial personality? I walked towards them step by step. High heels stomped on the floor and made a crisp sound. Every stroke is like a knock on their heart. For her own good? So you put her in hell and let her have her organs removed? For her own good? So you let an imposter live in her room, spend her money, use her life-saving medicine? My voice was soft. But Gavin's body began to tremble. I didn't know it would be. The people at the correctional center say they are professional. Professional? I sneered, professional enough to torture people to the point where they only have half their lives? I stopped in front of him. Raise your hand and stroke his face. His skin is well maintained. Unlike me, it's full of scars. Gavin, you really make me sick. I withdrew my hand and slapped him in the face with a backhand. Crisp and loud. He was beaten to the side, and half of his face instantly turned red and swollen. He looked at me in disbelief. You hit me? Hit you? I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him in front of me. I want your life today. Sophia screamed in the back. Murder. Help me. I didn't look back. I stared into Gavin's eyes. The eyes that once made me addicted to them are now full of fear and calculation. 10 years. I say. In the 10 years since I was away, you have taken care of our daughter like this? Where did the million I call you every month spend on? I asked you to hire the best teacher and the best doctor for her. You sent her to that kind of place. Gavin's lips trembled, and he couldn't speak. Lena. Is it that she doesn't learn well? She stole things, fought, and set fire to the babysitter's hair. Really? I let go of him and took out my phone. Click on a video. It is a video of Nia as a child. In the picture, she is holding an injured kitten and carefully bandaging it. She looked up and smiled at the camera. The eyes are curved, like crescent moons. The tear mole in the corner of the left eye is clearly visible. I know better than you what kind of person my daughter is. I turn off the video. It's you. My gaze turned to Sophia. What are you? A fake, dare to occupy the magpie's nest? I walked over, grabbed her by the hair, and dragged her off the bed. She screamed in pain. I dragged her to the living room and threw her on the floor. The white gold necklace around her neck glowed in the light. I reached out and tore it off. The pendant fell to the ground and fell off. It was empty inside. Nia's baby teeth are missing. Where's the tooth? I asked. Sophia covered her neck and looked at me in horror. What teeth? I don't know. I don't know? I picked up the pendant on the ground and pinched it in the palm of my hand. The hard metal hurts my palms. I remembered what Nia looked like when she changed her teeth. She cried and said it hurt, but she handed me the missed teeth like a baby. Mom, help me put it away, this is my baby. That's my baby. Is our baby. Now, it's gone. My anger burns completely. I grabbed the fruit knife on the coffee table. Against Sophia's face. Let me ask you again, where are your teeth? Sophia was so frightened that she was devastated. In the trash. I thought it was unlucky, so I threw it away. Trash can. My daughter's precious teeth were thrown away by her as garbage. I laughed. The blade gently slashed across her smooth cheeks, leaving a shallow bloodstain. She gasped in pain but didn't dare to move. Bad luck? Then I'll let you know today, what is real bad luck. I grabbed her hand and pressed it to the coffee table. Raised the fruit knife. Gavin rushed up. Lena. Don't mess around. I've called the police. Alarm? He actually called the police to arrest me? I looked back at him, his eyes cold. Okay. I want to see, the police are coming, whether to arrest me, a hero, or you, a beast who abuses your own daughter and cooperates with outsiders to embezzle property. Gavin's face turned pale instantly. He forgot. I am no longer the undercover agent who needs to hide in the dark and can't even reveal his identity. I'm Lena. He is a special first-class hero model of the Ministry of Public Security. It is the whole city that must respect my heroes. He was afraid. He was really afraid. Lena. We are husband and wife. We have a relationship of 10 years. Affection? I looked at his hypocritical face and felt like throwing up. From the moment you sent Nia to hell. Between us, there is only a grudge. I don't look at him anymore. The knife in his hand fell suddenly. Ah! Sophia's screams echoed throughout the apartment. Her tail fingers were cut off by me. Blood splattered my face. Warm, viscous. Sophia held her hands and rolled on the ground and wailed. Gavin sat slumped on the ground, his face pale. The door of the apartment was slammed open at this time. A middle-aged man wearing a police uniform and carrying the rank of first-class police superintendent on his shoulders rushed in. It is Victor, deputy director of the municipal bureau. He was followed by several SWAT officers. Victor saw the scene in the room and his pupils shrank. Lena. Stop it. He shouted sharply. I slowly stood up and wiped the blood from my face. Victor, you came just in time. Here, I have two scum to deal with. Victor looked at Sophia on the ground and her broken finger, his face pale. Scum? Lena, I think you're crazy. Do you know who she is? She is the daughter of Governor Stephen. You just regained your identity, and you are going to stab such a big basket? Governor Stephen. I understand. No wonder Gavin has such great courage. It turned out that he climbed a high branch. Gavin seemed to have grabbed a life-saving straw and crawled to Victor's feet. Victor. Save me. She's crazy. She's going to kill me. She also abused Nia. Nia was beaten all over her body by her, and she was sent to the correctional center for her own good. Reverse black and white. Shameless. Sophia also cried, Victor. Save me. It was her daughter who was psychopathic and abused me, so I defended myself. She still wants to kill me. Echo each other. Cooperate tacitly. Victor looked at me with disappointment and anger in his eyes. Lena, I'm so disappointed in you. If you have made meritorious contributions, the country will not treat you badly. But credit is not the capital for your abuse of violence and human life. Now, put down your weapons immediately and return to the bureau with me for investigation. The SWAT officer behind him raised his gun and aimed it at me. I laughed. Laughed extremely sarcasmically. Investigation? Okay. But it's not like I'm going back to the game with you. I took out my phone and dialed a number. Hey, Panther? I'm Lena. Give you 10 minutes to mobilize all your men. Blockade the entire city A, especially the highway intersection leading to the province. Without my orders, not a single fly would want to fly out. Tell them if anyone dares to break in. Don't talk about killing. On the other end of the phone, a calm and powerful voice came. Yes. Mission completion guaranteed. I hung up the phone. Looking at Victor, whose face changed drastically. Victor, as a special inspector of the Ministry of Public Security, I now suspect that you and Governor Stephen, Gavin and others are suspected of a case of child abduction, intentional injury and crimes committed in public office. Until the investigation is clear, you and your men must stay here. My words just fell. Outside the window, there were bursts of neat footsteps. And the roar of helicopter propellers. Panther Commando. I personally brought out the top special operations force in the country. They're coming. Victor's face changed from blue to white, from white to purple. He looked at me in disbelief. You. Do you dare to mobilize Panther? That's a unit under the direct jurisdiction of the central government. What power do you have? I didn't answer him. A man in a black combat uniform with camouflage on his face fell from the sky. He broke through the window and landed steadily in front of us. He is the captain of Panther, codenamed Panther. He saluted me with a standard military salute. Report Lena. The Panther Commando team is all here. Please instruct. Lena? Victor and Gavin were stunned. They don't know. Before I went undercover, I was the first and only female captain of the Panther Commando. This unit was created by me. They only listened to my orders. I pointed to Victor and the SWAT he had brought. Surrender their weapons and be optimistic about them. Yes. Panther waved his hand. More than a dozen team members rushed in. The movements were swift and silent. In just a few seconds, Victor and his people were disarmed and took control. Victor was trembling with anger. Lena. Are you going to rebel? Rebellion? I walked up to him and looked at him condescendingly. Victor, you seem to have made a mistake. I'm not discussing it with you. I'm informing you. My gaze swept over Gavin and Sophia. They were already scared. Especially Gavin. He collapsed on the ground, his crotch wet. It exudes an unpleasant stench. It's really sad. This is the man I once loved. A complete coward. Governor Stephen. I paused, picked up the tissue on the table, and wiped the blood from my hands. He will come in person soon and explain it to me. Downstairs in the apartment. The sound of sirens and the roar of military vehicles resounded together. The entire building, and even the entire community, was blocked by Panther commandos. The water is not passable. Gavin looked at the battle outside the window and completely collapsed. He knelt on the ground and crawled to my feet. Lena, I was wrong. I was really wrong. It's all Sophia. It was she who seduced me. It was she who asked me to send Nia away. It's all her idea. It has nothing to do with me. He had tears and snot flowing down, hugged my legs, and begged bitterly. I looked down at him. Looking at his ugly face, I just felt sick to my stomach. I kicked him away. It's okay. Gavin, do you think I'm a fool? Who can touch my daughter without your consent? Without your signature, who can take the medicine I left behind? You put all the responsibility on a woman. Are you still a man? My words, like knives, are stuck in his heart. He collapsed on the ground, speechless. I don't pay attention to him anymore. I walked up to Sophia. She still held her severed finger and shrank in the corner trembling. Now, it's your turn. I say. Tell me, where did my daughter's pericardium go? Sophia raised her head, her eyes full of resentment. I don't know. I don't know anything. Don't try to ask me anything. She was still stubborn. I laughed. I pulled over a chair and sat down in front of her. From your pocket, take out a small voice recorder. Press play, and Gavin's voice comes from inside. Baby, don't worry, I will definitely get the medicine left by Lena. And that little mongrel pericardium, I have contacted the doctor and will have surgery next week. At that time, your heart disease will be completely cured. We can be together forever. This is a call recording that I just recovered from Gavin's phone and was deleted by him. Sophia's face turned pale in an instant. She looked at Gavin in disbelief. Gavin felt like all his bones had been pulled out, slumped into a puddle of mud. I turn off the voice recorder. Now, do you still want to say that you don't know? My voice was very soft, but with a chill. Sophia, my patience is limited. I will recover the suffering of my daughter tenfold, 100-fold, from you. Where to start? I picked up the fruit knife that was still stained with blood. Gesturing on her face. Is it this face? Or your dirty heart, which I bought for my daughter's organs? Sophia was completely devastated. She screamed, struggled, and tried to stay away from me. Don't come here. You lunatic. My dad is a governor. He won't let you go. Governor. I laughed. Do you think he can still take care of you now? My words just fell. Panther came over and whispered a few words in my ear. I nodded. Stand up and walk to the window. Downstairs, a train of black cars was slowly coming. The car at the head has a license plate of the provincial capital. Governor Stephen, here we are. Faster than I expected. The convoy stopped downstairs. A gray-haired but energetic man, surrounded by several secretaries, walked down. He looked up and looked at the floor I was on. The eyes were gloomy. I pulled open the window. The cold wind poured in. Blow my hair. I looked at the man downstairs and showed a cold smile. Governor Stephen, don't come here, it's okay. My voice was not loud, but in the silence of the night, it spread far and wide. Governor Stephen squinted. Apparently, he recognized me. Or rather, he has investigated me a long time ago. Lena, what do you mean by this? His voice exuded an official authority. Privately mobilized troops, besieged state cadres, and injured people. You are the king of the eyes. Wang Fa? I laughed. Governor Stephen, are you talking to me about the king's law? Then your daughter, when you stole my daughter's life-saving medicine and took my daughter's organs, did you think about the royal law? When you used your power to cover up her crimes, did you think about the royal law? When you and my beastly husband conspired to plot everything about me, did you think about the royal law? I questioned him one by one, like bullets. Governor Stephen's face became more and more ugly. Nonsense. My daughter is kind-hearted, how could she do such a thing? It's you. It is you who are insane and abuse violence. Still quibbling. It's ridiculous. I don't bother to talk nonsense to him anymore. I turned and said to Panther. Take the two of them down. Let their family reunite well. Gavin and Sophia, like two dead dogs, were dragged down. Victor was also taken down. I didn't go down. I stood by the window and watched the farce downstairs coldly. Governor Stephen saw his daughter's tragic condition and saw her broken finger, and his eyes were red. He pointed at me and cursed. Madman. You complete lunatic. I'm going to let you sit in prison. I must make you pay. Sophia was crying too. Dad. Save me. She's going to kill me. She still wants to dig out my heart. Gavin knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing. Governor. Help me. This is all Lena's doing. It's none of my business. It's really a good show. The surrounding Panther team members were expressionless, like sculptures. Only I know that their guns are all loaded. As long as I give an order, these people downstairs will be beaten into a sieve in an instant. Governor Stephen is still shouting. The secretary behind him, taking out his mobile phone, seemed to be calling someone. Move the rescue? It's useless. Since I dare to do this, I have already cut off all their backs. Sure enough, a few minutes later, the secretary put down his phone with a pale face and said a few words in Governor Stephen's ear. Governor Stephen's scolding came to an abrupt end. He looked at me in disbelief. For the first time, fear was revealed in his eyes. He finally understood. What he faced was not an ordinary little policeman who could be at his disposal, but an existence that can shake the entire city of A and even the entire province. He was afraid. He was really afraid. He stopped scolding, but changed to a consultative tone. Lena, I have something to say. This matter There may be some misunderstanding. Let's sit down and talk slowly, okay? Talk? I laughed. Want to talk about it now? It's late. I took out my phone and dialed another number. A number from the capital. The call was quickly connected. Chief, I'm Lena. You should know everything. I just want justice. If City A can't give me, this province can't give me. Then I'll pick it up myself. On the other end of the phone, an old and majestic voice came. Lena, I'm sorry to wrong you. Don't worry, the country will not let you and your daughter suffer this great grievance in vain. I have sent the Supreme People's Procurator's task force. No one, any force, should not try to cover up criminals. Now, give the phone to that Governor Stephen. I threw my phone down the window. Panther reached out to catch it and handed it to Governor Stephen. Governor Stephen trembled and put his phone to his ear. I don't know what was said on the other end of the phone. His legs went weak and he knelt directly on the ground. The mobile phone also fell to the ground. His whole person seemed to have been drained of his energy. His face was ashen. The task force of the Supreme People's Procuratorate came quickly. That night, I arrived in City A by special plane. The leader of the team is Liam, known as the Iron-Faced King of Hell. Governor Stephen, Victor, Gavin, Sophia, and everyone involved were taken away. The Daystar Correctional Center was seized overnight. None of the person in charge and staff inside ran away. Those imprisoned children were also rescued. A crime that has been entrenched in City A for many years has been uprooted. And I have been standing in front of Nia's hospital bed. She hasn't woken up yet. Lying there quietly, like a fragile doll. Doctors say her condition is complicated. The removed pericardium can be repaired surgically. But the fraudulent genetic agent has caused irreversible damage to her body. In the future, she may have various sequelae. Even, it will affect her lifespan. I held her cold hand, my heart like a knife. My Nia. The baby I protect with my life. But I was hurt by the person I trusted the most. Liam from the task force came to see me once. He told me that Sophia's heart had indeed been transplanted to my daughter's pericardium. The chief surgeon was the most famous cardiac surgeon in the city, whom Gavin contacted through Victor. As for the money I left behind, most of it was squandered by Gavin and Sophia. Buy luxury cars, buy luxury goods, and travel the world. They live like heaven. And my daughter is struggling in hell. Liam also told me. Gavin and Governor Stephen, there is a lot of power and money trading. They used my name to deceive outside and amassed huge wealth. Conclusive. They can't get out in this life. I listened, without any expression on my face. I only asked. Where's Sophia? Liam was silent for a moment. She has a serious congenital heart disease, and the doctor said that it is not appropriate to be detained. Currently, he is under residential surveillance in the hospital. Should it not be detained? A good one should not be detained. I stood up. Liam, thank you for telling me this. I'll do the next thing myself. I walked out of the ward. The Panther team members guarding outside immediately followed. Lena, where are you going? I looked out the window at the dark night. Go meet that, Sophia should not be detained. The hospital where Sophia is located is heavily guarded. There are 2 police officers guarding the door. But they couldn't stop me, the people of the Panther directly controlled them. I walked into Sophia's ward unhindered. She was lying in bed, watching TV. Seems to be recovering well. Seeing me, she was startled and subconsciously wanted to ring the call bell. I walked over and unplugged the pager. Sophia, don't be safe. I pulled over a chair and sat down on the edge of her bed. She looked at me in horror and shrank towards the corner of the bed. You. What do you want? Let me tell you, there is surveillance here. Don't mess around. Monitor? I looked up at the camera in the corner. Panther has already taken care of it. Now, no second person will know everything that happens in this room. I don't want to do anything. I smiled and took a scalpel from my pocket. I borrowed it from the emergency room. The blade was shining with cold light under the light. I just came and got back what was supposed to belong to my daughter. Sophia's eyes stared at the knife in my hand. Her body shook more and more violently. You. Don't come here. Help. Help me. She screamed. Unfortunately, the 2 policemen outside the door could no longer hear. I stood up and walked towards her step by step. Don't be afraid. I say. The surgical process will be fast. I promise, it won't make you feel too much pain. After all, when my daughter was taken away by them, she didn't even give me an anesthetic. This sentence, like a basin of ice water, extinguished Sophia's last hope. On her face, only despair remained. I leaned down and whispered in her ear. Do you know? What I'm best at, in addition to marksmanship, is anatomy. In the 10 years of the drug trafficking group, in order to gain trust, I personally dissected no less than 100 corpses. I know better than any surgeon about the structure of the human body. So, don't worry. I will, definitely, take out the piece of something on your chest that doesn't belong to you. Not a lot, a little bit. I finished speaking, no longer looking at her desperate face. Raised the scalpel in his hand. I aimed at the one on her chest, which was exactly the same as my daughter's chest, a hideous scar. Then, it slowly falls. I don't know how I got out of that ward. I just remember that my hands were full of blood. Panther helped me up and sent me back to Nia's ward. I washed my hands and changed my clothes. Sitting on the edge of Nia's bed, like nothing had happened. The next day, the news reported. Governor Stephen's daughter, Sophia, died of a heart attack after ineffective rescue. Governor Stephen, in the detention center, turned gray overnight. Gavin, who was sentenced to life in prison. All the property under his name was seized and transferred to Nia's name, including the penthouse that was once occupied by Sophia. Victor, as well as all the officials, doctors, and staff of the correctional center involved in the case, all received the punishment they deserved. The dust settled. The sky in City A seems to be a little bluer. Only I know this is not enough. They were punished less than 1/10,000th of the pain my daughter suffered. I stood by Nia's bed, never leaving. Feed her, wipe her body, and talk to her. Although she spends most of her time sleeping. I found the best cardiologist in the world. They developed a detailed treatment plan for Nia. The operation was successful. With artificial materials, her pericardium was repaired. But her body was still very weak. Psychological trauma is even more difficult to heal. When she is awake, she is always silent. The eyes are empty and do not communicate with anyone. Even, including me. The doctor said it was severe PTSD. It takes a long time and enough patience to recover slowly. I'm not afraid. What I have is time and patience. I owe her too much. I want to make up for it with the rest of my life. I submitted my resignation report to the organization. Let go of all past honors and identities. I am no longer Officer Lena, nor am I Captain Panther. I'm just a mother. The mother of a girl named Nia. I sold that disgusting apartment in the city center. Bought a house with a garden on the outskirts. It was quiet and the sun was good. I planted my own garden with Nia's favorite sunflowers. I took Nia home. Every day, I was with her. Read her stories, draw with her, take her for a walk in the garden. At first, she resisted. Don't speak, don't look at me, and even tremble at my unintentional touch. My heart hurts like a needle. But I didn't give up. I told her over and over again. Nia, don't be afraid, Mom is here. No one can hurt you anymore. I put the white gold necklace back on her neck. In the pendant, I put a new baby tooth that I found from her belongings. She was replaced when she was 6 years old. That day, she hugged the necklace and cried. Crying heart-wrenchingly. It was the first time she cried since returning from the correctional center. I hugged her and cried with her. We cried out all our grievances, pain, and longing. From that day on, she began to slowly get better. She would smile at me. Will call me Mom in a very soft voice. Will hold my hand and watch butterflies in the garden. I know, my Nia is coming back little by little. A year later. Nia's body has basically recovered. The psychological state has also stabilized a lot. She started going to school. Although there are still not many words, I can already communicate with my classmates normally. Her paintings are getting better and better. In the painting, it is no longer a gray tone. Instead, it was filled with sunshine, flowers, and smiling faces. We went to see Gavin once. In prison. He is much older and has most of his hair gray. Seeing us, he cried. Keep saying I'm sorry. Nia didn't look at him from beginning to end. Take my hand, turn around and leave. I didn't look back. Some people, some things, have passed, and they are gone forever. A few more years passed. Nia was admitted to her ideal university. I studied art. She was going to another city. On the day she took her to the airport, she hugged me and cried. Mom, I'll miss you. I smiled and touched her head. Mom will miss you too. Take care of yourself. She nodded, turned around and walked into the security checkpoint. The necklace around her neck, in the sun, shone with a warm light. I stood there, looked at her back, and disappeared into the crowd. Tears slipped silently. After 10 years of fighting on the battlefield, I guarded my home and country behind me. Returned to the iron-blooded revenge, I protected the treasure in my palm. My task is complete. The phone rang. It was Leo calling. Lena, go back to the team. The team needs you, and the country needs you. I looked at the picture of the plane taking off on the big screen at the airport. Smiled. Okay.